Tobago, 1949. Not the postcard Tobago. The real one. No hotel resorts. No fancy villas. Just Mason Hall, a bush-wrapped village where goats had more freedom than children, and the loudest thing in the morning was the rooster, not traffic. And in a small wooden house with a tin roof and a Bible on the nightstand, a baby boy is born. His name? Keith Christopher Rowley. No one clapped. No politician showed up. But God heard it. And so did the hills. He was raised, not by his mother or father, but by his grandparents, solid, rural folk who lived off the land and lived by the word. His grandmother, Veronica Arthur, was the CEO of that household. And make no mistake, her management style was firm. If you said good morning too late, you might get a cut eye that could blister paint. And if you bounced church on Sabbath, pack your bags for Judgment Day. His grandparents were Seventh-day Adventists and not the half and half type. Proper Adventists. The kind who shut it all down from sunset Friday to sunset Saturday. No fits. No pan. Not even a pot boiling. It was like Orthodox Judaism, but with more dasheen and less Hebrew. Carnival? That was Sodom and Gomorrah in sequins. While the rest of Tobago was outside liming and sipping punchin'. Rowley was sitting through 4-hour Sabbath services, fighting sleep while the pastor explained Daniel and Revelation again. But that faith, that strictness, it planted deep roots. Roots in discipline, in stillness, in self-mastery. In a world where noise gets attention, Rowley was learning to move with purpose, quiet but powerful. Now let's talk about his mother. In Rowley's own words, "My mother, Agatha Vassie Rowley, left me when I was 1 year old with my grandfather and came to work in Trinidad with Audrey Jeffers." Audrey Jeffers, the legendary social worker and activist. So Rowley's mother was around greatness, but still far from him. He said, "My mother was a well-known cook in the breakfast shed. She lived a decent, hard-working life. And she did. She made her name not in politics, but in pots and pans, seasoning love into every meal she sold near the Port of Spain waterfront. She wasn't absent because she didn't care. She was absent because that's what Caribbean women had to do. Work hard, sacrifice, survive." And then there was his father, Carlton Joseph. Rowley didn't know him well as a child. But in a quiet, revealing moment, he once said, "My father eventually married another woman who helped to raise me. The only person whose white school shirt she washed was mine, because her older children didn't go to high school." Now pause there. That's a line you feel in your chest. She had children of her own. But she washed his shirts because he had school. Because he was going somewhere. And that kind of grace? That's Caribbean family. Complicated, broken, blended, but still full of quiet love. Now you see, Rowley's early life wasn't one of abundance. It was one of absence, adjustment, and Adventist structure. And yet he thrived. He later said, "I am a product of the Tobago ethos, discipline, responsibility, and effort." But he's also the product of something deeper. He's the product of the Afro-Trinidadian story, a story shaped by slavery, where surnames were stolen and languages lost, where unlike Indo-Trinese who know their ancestral villages in India, or Syrians who carry the same names across generations, Afro-Trinese like Rowley often don't know where they come from. No coat of arms, no family crest, just the unshakable will to make something out of the nothing they were given. And that's what his grandparents did. They grew cassava, they grew yams, and without even realizing it, they grew a prime minister. Before the parliament, before the pick-a-side politics, before the dotish press conference clapbacks, Rowley was a scientist. A real one. Boots on, hard hat tight, digging in the dirt, testing soil samples and lava flows. Not in foreign labs. Right here. He earned his bachelor's, master's, and eventually his PhD in geochemistry, all from the University of the West Indies. And that, my friend, that's not just a degree. That's a statement. Because while other Caribbean leaders were jetting off to London, Toronto, or Howard to make their mark, Rowley stayed home. He didn't fly out to find prestige. He built it right where his navel string was buried. He studied Tobago's volcanic rocks for his doctoral thesis. Tobago was not just his birthplace, it became his research subject, his laboratory, his legacy. And in a region where foreign degrees often carry more clout than local brilliance, Rowley was saying, we don't have to leave to matter. The University of the West Indies, the same institution birthed by regional independence movements, gave him more than credentials. It gave him a sense of self, a grounding, a Caribbean lens on science, economics, and life itself. That's something no Oxford Hall can teach you. He didn't just become a PhD. He became one of the few rural-born Black Caribbean men to do it at home, on local soil, against all odds. And let's be honest, that road was harder. No rich family, no famous surname, no shortcut. He had to earn everything, in an environment where the system wasn't built for boys like him to reach the top. But reach he did. He lectured at UWI, walking the same halls he once tiptoed through as a student, now commanding lecture theaters full of future scientists. He ran the seismic research unit, monitoring the ground for danger while politicians shook it for votes. He helped build the National Petroleum Marketing Company, guiding a key state energy institution in its early years. While others were kissing babies, he was analyzing magma samples. And while some were writing speeches, Rowley was writing code into the earth itself. Let's not forget, the man literally studied fire. So if he's hot-tempered, if he erupts in Parliament, blame the geochemistry. That's science. But beneath that volcanic energy is a man shaped not just by hard knocks, but by hard knowledge. Local knowledge. The kind built on Caribbean soil, not foreign sand. Because sometimes, the real power isn't in who leaves to find opportunity. It's in who stays and creates it. Keith Rowley didn't crash into politics like a wrecking ball. He rose quietly, steadily, like a volcano rumbling beneath the surface, waiting for the right time to erupt. It started back in 1981, when he contested the Tobago West seat in the general election. He lost, but failure wasn't the end, it was the foundation. And here's a little-known gem. To this day, Rowley remains the only PNM politician to have contested elections in both Tobago and Trinidad. That alone tells you the man wasn't just playing politics. He was living it north, south, east, west. He began sharpening his tools as an opposition senator in 1987 to 1990, learning the ropes, studying the craft, watching how power moved in the room. From there, he started to climb. He held key ministries, agriculture, planning, housing, even trade and industry, each one a different kind of war zone. Whether it was farmers, developers, or business lobbies, Rowley had to face them all. But here's the twist. He didn't do it with flattery. He did it with fire. So much fire, in fact, that then Prime Minister Patrick Manning suspended him from cabinet for being too outspoken. Yes, he was fired for telling the truth too loudly. That's how you know you're a problem, when being honest becomes a political liability. But while Manning showed him what power can give, another man showed him what power should be. And through it all, one man loomed large in Rowley's story. A.N.R. Robinson, Tobago's most iconic son, a prime minister, a president, and a living symbol that a barefoot boy from the hills of Mason Hall could one day run the nation. Robinson didn't just break glass ceilings, he smashed concrete walls. He taught Rowley that principled leadership mattered, that even in the brutal arena of Trinidad politics, you could hold your ground without losing your soul. That a Tobagonian voice, though often outnumbered, could still echo through the halls of power. Rowley watched Robinson rise, fall, and rise again. He studied the dignity, the resistance, and the unapologetic pride in being Tobago-born. And it became clear, you didn't have to beg to lead. You had to stand to lead. So when Rowley eventually became leader of the opposition in 2010, after the PNM's defeat, he didn't just fill a seat, he filled a legacy. He took the reins of a wounded party, introduced one man, one vote, reforms to democratize its structure, and slowly began rebuilding the Red House brick by brick. He fought in Parliament, chaired committees, pushed for live broadcasting of debates, and represented the country at the Inter-American and Caribbean Development Banks. He didn't coast, he climbed. And by 2015, when the nation was boiling with scandal fatigue under Kamala Persibusesser's government, Rowley stepped forward. Not as a savior, but as a fighter. A man tested in fire, scientific fire, political fire, personal fire. And this time he won. He became the second Tobagonian prime minister in Trinidad and Tobago's history, following none other than A.N.R. Robinson. And in that moment, the full circle closed. From student of the earth, to student of Robinson, to leader of a nation. So when you hear Rowley's voice thunder through Parliament, know that it's more than just bluster. It's the echo of elders, of ancestors, of a generation told they weren't supposed to lead, but led anyway. For all his fire in the public square, Dr. Keith Rowley lives a surprisingly quiet life behind closed doors. He's not one to parade his children on campaign stages or line them up in matching t-shirts for a political Christmas card. Ask anyone close to him and they'll tell you. Rowley is a family man, but a private one. Very private. He's been married for decades to Sharon Rowley, a soft-spoken, elegant attorney who's famously camera-shy, avoiding the spotlight like it's jury duty, graceful, grounded, and respected in her own right. Together, they've raised 2 daughters, Sonal and Tanya. One's an attorney, the other's in private sector business. And both, by all accounts, are sharp as cutlasses, graceful like their mother, but with just enough of their father's steel to keep you honest. But let's not pretend Caribbean family life is ever neat. Not on paper, not in practice, and especially not in politics. As Rowley once put it himself, I had a life long before I came into public life. You know, I had 2 children before I was married and 2 after I was married and I came into public life. Translation? This isn't a picture-perfect fairy tale family. It's a real West Indian one. The kind that doesn't always fit neatly into a single photo frame. One of those earlier children is Garth Aline, his eldest son. Quiet, private, and living abroad, Garth attended Bishop's High School in Tobago and has remained in touch with the family over the years. When Tanya got married, Garth was there with his own daughter beside him. No press conference, no headlines, just family showing up in the ways that matter. Then there's Christopher Rowley, the younger son who entered the public's radar through a family photo released after Emancipation Day celebrations. When reporters asked who the young man beside him was, Rowley didn't dodge, didn't stumble. "Yes, that's my son," he said, calm as ever. The country blinked. Another son? People didn't know whether to gasp or gossip. And just like that, the headlines exploded. But if you expected shame or spin, Rowley gave none. He handled it like he handles hecklers in Parliament. Head on. No flinch. No apology. "It is a matter that has long been settled," he told the press. Translation? Yes, it happened. And y'all only vex because I keep winning elections. His longtime rival Kamala Persibasessor didn't waste the moment. She fired back with a jab. "I don't think there is any greater embarrassment for a person who have more children outside than inside." It was a line meant to sting. And maybe for some, it would have. But the truth is, Rowley's personal story mirrors the story of many Black Caribbean families, especially those born in the tension between Christian teachings and West Indian realities. He was raised in a strict Seventh-day Adventist household where you didn't just attend church, you lived it. No pork, no party, no fete after dark on a Friday. While the world was whining in Woodford Square, Rowley was likely reciting scripture and dodging temptation. But religion alone doesn't erase culture. And in the Caribbean, the pull of masculinity, desire, and reputation often ran stronger than the hymns on Sabbath morning. Rowley, like many Caribbean men of his generation, struggled with that balance. The tension between faith and fire, between rules and real life. And yet, he didn't run. He didn't pretend. He acknowledged his missteps, owned every child, and eventually did what tradition demanded. He married. He built a stable home. He stood by his family. And in one of his rare moments of raw honesty, he said, "When you go through this political arena, nobody stays in it forever. You get out of it feet first or head first, and at the end of the day, all you may have is that your family and a few friends." That's not just sentiment. That's hard-won wisdom. Because behind the headlines, the heckling, and the heated debates, there's a man who treasures his family more with each passing day. A man who knows that politics fades. But family? That's the only vote that truly matters. So, how much is Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley actually worth? Officially, public declarations suggest anywhere from $300,000 to $600,000 US. But let's be real. This is Trinidad and Tobago. Nobody declares everything. Not even a mango tree. So when you dig a little deeper, through decades of public service, real estate moves, government pensions, quiet board roles, and a Goodwood Park address, Rowley's true net worth likely sits closer to 1.5 to 2 million US dollars, if not more. But here's the kicker. Even if he didn't have one red cent to his name alone is worth a fortune. In this country, your name is your brand. And Rowley's name? That thing is stock, currency, and insurance policy wrapped in one. He spent decades building it, brick by brick, speech by speech, scandal by survival. Say Rowley in any rum shop, cabinet meeting, or oil field canteen and ears perk up. Say it in any backroom political negotiation, and you'll hear chairs shift and throats clear. That name opens doors. It closes deals. It protects secrets. In fact, Rowley holds more high-level information than the archives at Whitehall. Some say he knows the real reason for every blackout, boardroom firing, and carnival permit delay since 1987. If Colonel Sanders guarded the recipe for fried chicken, Rowley guards the recipe for surviving Caribbean politics with your jacket still on and your pension intact. He is the vault, the safe with no combination, the man who knows what really went down, but sips his tea and watches the rest of us guess. And that kind of political capital, that's worth more than any Range Rover or offshore account. Because in this region, your real wealth isn't just in money, it's in who trusts you, who fears you, and who owes you one. And Keith Rowley? He got IOUs from here to Cuba. So to sum it up, Dr. Keith Rowley might not floss wealth on Instagram. He might not own a yacht or send his dog to obedience school in Switzerland. But he's got land, legacy, and a last name that rings bells in every ministry. He's not rich by accident. He's rich by strategy. Rowley's biggest accomplishment? Winning. Because in politics, before you can serve, you must first win. And Keith Rowley knows this truth better than most. His political journey is a marathon, not a sprint. He first ran for the Tobago West seat in 1981, but lost. That defeat didn't break him, it sharpened him. Despite losing his seat, he was appointed a senator by the government way back in 1987. Being appointed a senator in Trinidad and Tobago isn't like winning a popularity contest. It's more like getting called to jury duty by the president, but in a good suit. You don't campaign, you don't kiss babies. You get chosen for your brains, your balance, or because somebody up top thinks you're wise enough not to mash up the place. It's an honor rooted in history, meant for thinkers, not loud talkers. Just remember, if MPs are the DJs hyping the crowd, senators are the ones adjusting the bass so the place don't collapse. But one day, while working as Minister of Trade and Industry, something big happened. Dr. Rowley found out there was a plan to build a big fancy theater using government money. He didn't think it was a good idea. He worried that it might look like the government was wasting money or doing something unfair. So he spoke up, standing on business, way ahead of his time going up against his own boss, loyal to his constituents and denying the National Academy for the Performing Arts, NAPA, project, believing that money should be used to help the poor instead. That made the Prime Minister at the time, Mr. Patrick Manning, very upset. When Mr. Manning came back from a trip and saw that Dr. Rowley had stopped the plan, he fired him. Just like that. Dr. Rowley was surprised and hurt. He had worked very hard and felt proud of his job. He wondered, how will my children feel about this? What will people think? But instead of giving up, he stayed calm and strong. Even after that, he kept working for his community and stayed in politics. He dominated general elections in 1991, 1995, 2002, 2007, 2010, 2015, and 2020, a total of 7 successful election bids. Each victory was a hard-fought battle against strong opponents and shifting political tides. And when the PNM was out of power after 2010, Rowley became leader of the opposition, rallying his party back to the forefront. Finally, in 2015, after years of groundwork, he won the general election and became prime minister. So yes, his biggest accomplishment isn't just the policies or speeches, it's the sheer political stamina and tactical skill to win, again and again, in a country known for unpredictable swings and fierce competition. Because the first job of any politician is simple: win the vote. Only after that comes the work of serving. And Rowley? He's been doing both for over 3 decades. From the moment he took office in 2015, he walked straight into a firestorm: plummeting oil prices, a growing crime crisis, and a public that was increasingly fed up with the old talk and empty promises. And yet, he stayed standing. Because say what you want about the man, Keith Rowley doesn't flinch. Under his leadership, Trinidad and Tobago faced some of the toughest years in recent memory. The COVID-19 pandemic nearly paralyzed the country. Rowley's no-nonsense lockdowns, daily press conferences, and mask up or move attitude made him a wartime-style leader. Some praised his firm hand. Others said it bordered on dictatorship. Crime was his Achilles heel. Despite reshuffling national security ministers like dominoes, the country still grappled with murders, gang violence, and a police force often in the news for the wrong reasons. People began saying, if you ain't afraid of God, at least be afraid of Laventil. And of course, constant political battles, from Kamla's UNC jabs to social media potshots. But if you think Rowley afraid Bacchanal, this is a man who'd fight a hurricane if it showed up in red. Still, amid the noise, Rowley delivered. He strengthened local government reform, particularly empowering Tobago, something close to his heart as a proud Tobagonian. He navigated the energy sector through a post-boom world, signing critical gas agreements and negotiating with big players like BP and Shell. He held firm during global inflation, refusing to subsidize everything for popularity points. He also oversaw the construction of several housing projects, a new Point Fortin highway, and health sector upgrades including the long-delayed Arima and Point Fortin hospitals. And through it all, he never got caught with his hands in the treasury. No yachts, no bags of cash in a freezer. Say what you want, but Rowley played it cleaner than most. Then just when you thought retirement would be peaceful, boom. The man finds himself on an Interpol watch list. No, that's not a Silka remix. That's real life. In July 2024, Rowley, now retired, was stopped at VC Bird International Airport in Antigua while on his way to Montserrat. The reason? His name was flagged in the immigration system due to a notation from Interpol. Antigua's Prime Minister, Gaston Brown, quickly did damage control. It wasn't a detention and the info didn't come from us. But Rowley wasn't buying the diplomatic curry. This was a deliberate, calculated attempt to tarnish my name on an international stage, he said, calling it state-sponsored slander and a vicious defamation campaign. Whether clerical error or political sabotage, one thing is clear. Rowley may be out of office, but the heat still follows him. Because when you lead with that much fire, you make enemies who remember your name like a bad debt. And here's the deeper part. Rowley's legacy for Black men in Trinidad and Tobago, a country where Afro-Trinidadians are a minority in size and wealth, often marginalized politically and economically. Rowley himself is a product of that complex reality, a Black man from Tobago, raised in a modest home, who climbed through academia and politics to the highest office. In a nation where wealth, power, and social capital have historically been concentrated elsewhere, his rise was a rare beacon. Proof that disciplined focus, resilience, and a refusal to back down could still break ceilings. But that legacy comes with contradictions. Rowley is a figure of pride to many Black men who see in him a reflection of their own struggles and ambitions. A man who, despite systemic obstacles, carried himself with dignity, took on tough challenges, and refused to be silenced. Yet others question whether he did enough to shift the deeper structures that keep many Black communities trapped in poverty or violence. They ask, did his leadership truly translate to more opportunities for everyday Afro-Trinidadians? Or did it merely maintain the status quo? And so, Rowley's story is not just of one man, but of a people negotiating their place in a fractured society. So who is Dr. Keith Rowley? A man who rose from bush to parliament, from unknown child to national figure, from lava samples to lava speeches. He's not always warm. He's not always liked. But one thing he always is, unapologetically Rowley. So what do you think? Is Keith Rowley a necessary storm in a stagnant sea? Or just another loudmouth with a doctorate? The barefoot boy from Mason Hall? the geologist who studied fire and ended up walking through it, the prime minister who barked, not begged, and built his legacy one hard choice at a time. Say what you want about Rowley, love him or hate him, but you can't deny this man showed up. For his country, for his roots, and for his family. From Sharon, his quiet and constant queen, to Sonal and Tanya, sharp as steel and smooth as silk, to his sons Garth and Christopher, each writing their own story. And yes, to his grandkids, the Rowley name lives on. He didn't always play by the rules, but he played hard and he played with heart. So drop a comment with your favorite Rowley moment, serious or scandalous. Like the video if you believe in tough love leadership. And subscribe if you think Caribbean stories deserve to be told, not just with facts, but with feeling. Because this man, he didn't just hold office, he held a line. And whether he walks off into the sunset or storms back in with cutlass in hand, Rowley's legacy is already carved in Caribbean stone.